Hey guys, it is Christina here. I am back for the final episode in the series for the Coaching Academy launch, and I want to talk about the inner child. So if you are joining me live, say hi, let me know that you're here. I would love to acknowledge you and have your presence very much felt by me. And if you are watching the replay, #replay, please feel free to participate as if you're actually here live. So leave any of those comments that you would normally leave if you are on live with me, answer any of those questions, and do all of that beautiful work. I'm just going to plug in my microphone and say hi. Let me know you're here. I love to have you as a part of this conversation. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Christina. I am a naturopath, GAPS practitioner, gut health expert, as well as life coach and business coach for healers. And so today what I'm doing is I'm really talking about some of the stuff that we do when we're doing Coaching Academy and some of the stuff that I teach in Coaching Academy. And I created this Coaching Academy essentially because for me, when I did my naturopathy, I knew that there was some stuff that was missing, that I needed some extra zhuzh, let's say that, in the sense that I could help my clients create all sorts of amazing plans that would work for them, that would help them to create fantastic results for their body and get them along that pathway and that journey that they wanted to get on. But what I was finding was that for some people, it was fine. It was totally perfect for them. They were chugging along head first and they were doing fantastic in creating the results that they wanted. But then there was this group of people who were struggling to take the action that they needed to take in order to get those results. And it really got me questioning and it got me thinking around, what is it that's stopping them? Because they would even sometimes take the action and they would start to feel better. They were looking better. They had more energy. They were doing all these beautiful things. And then suddenly they would just like stop doing it. And I was like, that's really interesting. And I was curious as to why. And then, of course, I've been on my own healing journey and also started to ask myself that question. Why don't I do the things that I know that I want to do? What's stopping me from taking the action in the spaces that I want to take action? And of course, it all came down to like mindset and how we think. And so I've been on this really long journey for the last several years in actually really deepening my understanding about how the human brain works, but also how we create these subconscious patterns. And as we go down this journey of creating these subconscious patterns, it's impossible not to come across some type of inner child work. So let me explain what that is. Essentially, we all have our little self that's still living inside of us. So we have that little person that's inside of us that went through the experiences that we went through. And they still have memories of those experiences. They still hold the meanings of those experiences as well. And for many of us, those little inner children are still driving our bus when it comes to our adult life, because we haven't looked at the hurt and the pain that they experienced and the meaning that they gave those experiences and actually corrected the record or set the record straight, or loved that little one that didn't get the love that they maybe needed in that moment. And so the inner child work is doing just that. The inner child work is something that I do with my clients to actually help them start to re-engage with that little person that's driving their bus and who created the strategies, who created the systems, who created the patterns that they're running their life out of. What you were talking about this morning, that's awesome. So part of Coaching Academy is to actually learn the skills to be able to take your clients through that type of work. Because here's kind of how it goes. And this is just a brief overview. It's a generalization, so it won't hit everybody's nails on the top of the head, but you'll get the gist. So generally speaking, we could always go back further, but generally speaking, let's go from birth. So from birth, you're born into this world, beautiful, lovable, wonderful, emotive, playful. You can't help but express who you are. If you're hungry, you can't help but express that. If you're in pain, you can't help hide that. And so we are just who we are when we're born into this world. And we're very egocentric because we are very dependent upon the magical big people in our lives to actually take care of us in order for us to survive. And so you're born into this world worthy, lovable, and enough. And then you're born into this world to parents who don't believe that they are worthy, lovable, and enough. And so they set about teaching you that you are also not worthy, lovable, and enough. And there's this tribal cycle and these tribal patterns that get handed down from one generation to another generation to another generation. Now, those patterns may change over time. So we may see, for example, there was a period of time where women weren't allowed to work in the workforce, and now they're allowed to work in the workforce. And then there's some shame around working in the workforce. And, you know, the pattern of being able to work in the workforce has changed, but there's still shame that's then handed down on whatever decision it is that you choose to have. And these are the tribal cycles that we kind of get passed down, where we learn to feel the needs of our magical big people. So if our big person is sad, we try and make them happy. We feel like it's our job to actually make them happy. If our big person is angry, we feel like it's our fault that they're angry. And because children are egocentric, they have this unique ability to turn everything in on themselves. So if there's not enough money in the house because dad gambled and there's not enough to buy a dinner, then that child goes, well, it's because I eat too much. And because before 8, we're functioning on beta waves. So our brain is working on beta waves where it's just accepting information. It's not challenging any of the information. It's just accepting it. And so when that little child goes, oh, there's not enough food for dinner, it's because I eat too much, you know, I'm always eating, I need to stop eating. And they take that and they turn it into meaning. And then they, you know, try really hard to stop eating, but they can't help it because they're hungry. Or they might actually achieve at being able to live and be a happy starver. And that can be one of the multitude of meanings that children can give all sorts of different events. But the key element there is that as a child, especially in that age bracket, you are egocentric. You are designed to be egocentric because you have to communicate that you need food, that you need sustenance, that you need all of those things. Like, so it's a normal pattern for us to be egocentric. But just like there's a positive side to everything, there's also a darker side to everything as well. And the darker side is that can, egocentric people, when children can turn everything back around on themselves and they can make it mean it's their fault. So for example, dad's drinking too much. It's my fault because I'm not nice to be around. He didn't want kids in the first place. I shouldn't be here. I need to be quiet. I need to be silent. I need to not be seen or heard. There are all sorts of different meanings that we as children create for ourselves. So part of the work on actually reclaiming who we actually are and doing the journey of health is to actually connect back into that inner child and to reparent yourself in many ways. Now, when we're doing this, I need to make a proviso in here, or I need to kind of have an asterisk, and that is, we're not saying that your parents did terrible jobs, because you could have had the best parents on the planet, but you still turned some of the things that they did as a egocentric problem for you, and you still create meaning out of it. So don't feel like when you're listening to this that there's any parent shame here, that there's you as a parent need to be like, oh my God, I can't do anything. Like, let that go. Just know we're all going to stuff up our kids. It's part of life. But what we can do is teach them how to change, communicate, repair, heal, all of that type of stuff. The stuff that maybe we didn't learn as kids to do. So let's just push that to the side. We're all just going to stuff up our kids. They all need something to heal from, or they don't get to go on their own healing journey. So leave that to a side. We know that you're doing the best job that you can possibly do. And when you know better, you do better. And your goal is not to necessarily take away all of their pain, but actually to teach them how to heal from the pain. So with that aside, we need to look at our own pain and look at our own stuff. And I like to have this image of all of us, there's a big me and then there's a little me that's sitting inside. And that little me still carries the burden of the memories and the pain and the experiences and the meaning that she gave to the events of her life. The meaning that of all of the things that actually took place. And in order to heal her and make her feel whole and loved, which then essentially makes me feel whole and loved, I have to be willing to have conversations with her. Now, there's this special thing when it comes to having conversations with your little person, and that is your little person has learnt that big people are not trustworthy. That big people don't actually do the things that they say they're going to do all the time, especially if you've been one of those people, and I'm sure all of us have, I definitely have been one of those people that has surrendered self and self-importance to keep other people happy. And as women, we might call that the good girl part. We played the role of being the good girl, and the good girl, make sure that the guests are always welcome. Make sure that people are always taken care of. Make sure that, they say nice things all of the time and they wouldn't say things that could possibly offend other people. And many of us have been taught to play that role in our lives. And the good girl who plays that role also surrenders her own heart and desires and wishes for other people. And when she does that, what she says to her little person is, "You're not worth me standing up for." So take a moment and just think, have you said those types of things for your little person? Have you said to them that they're not worth standing up for because of whatever? And it can happen in a whole bunch of scenarios, like somebody's ripped you off and you decided not to say anything because that would be hard. Or it could be you said you're going to do something, like you're looking after your health, but then you don't follow through on it. Or you say, I'm going to go to bed early because I know that would be good for me. And then you stay up 2 hours later after that. How many promises have you made to yourself that you haven't kept? Those are really key when it comes to connecting back into our inner child. So exactly what comes to my mind. Am I wounding my children? Yeah. And you know what? I want to say that I absolutely felt that way too when I was really starting to do this work. I was like, nope, I'm not listening to it because they're saying that there's something wrong with the way that I'm raising my children and I can't do anything else bad to it. I can't fix this. But actually, the truth is we live in a world where everyone is going to get hurt. It just happens. But what we can do is minimize that as much as possible by consciously parenting. But we can also then actually teach our children how to heal, because that's the important element of learning how to do that skill as opposed to just not ever being hurt, because you can't protect your children from absolutely everything in the world. Even if you were the most perfect parent on the entire face of the planet, somebody else would still come along and hurt your child. They would say something that your child would interpret in a way that meant that there was something wrong with them. So just let that go. Know that your job as a parent is actually more to help guide them and teach them how to heal by demonstrating it and actually doing it yourself. Because remember, our children will watch us far more than they ever listen to us. So the old adage of do what I say and not what I do doesn't work. And children will watch what you do. And if you go on the journey of actually embracing your inner child and embracing those wounds and actually helping to heal that little inner person, then you're also going on the journey of teaching your children how to do the same. And while they might not have the language that you might have to talk about it, they actually energetically pick up on what you're doing and they learn naturally how to do it. And then along the way, you'll guide them with some conversations. So know that if you're thinking that I'm going to stuff up my kids, that you're not one of the parents that are going to actually be really stuffing up their kids. The people who are not asking that question are generally the ones that, don't really care if they're stuffing up their kids or not. So just embrace, know that It's about you doing your work, and that will guide them into them being able to do their work. Just like if we turn around and we say sorry to our children when we've growled or when we've done something that we're ashamed of or we're not proud of, we're teaching them how to also say sorry too. So let that be that. Now, getting back to your little person that's living inside. That little person that's living inside of you has all of the information. I'm going to say she because I'm a she, so I'm going to talk about it from terms of me. If you're a guy, say him, whatever. She is in possession of all of the knowledge that's ever happened to you. While you might not consciously be able to remember everything that has taken place, she does. She still has all of that information. And she knows the meaning that she gave to things. She knows the events that happened. She knows all of that information. And she can tell you that information in order for you to heal. But she won't tell you that information until she believes you're trustworthy. And because most of us have been living our lives not being trustworthy for ourselves and not keeping the promises that we make to ourselves, we've taught her that we're just like every other adult in her life and we're not trustworthy. So in order to first start doing the work of the inner child and helping to heal that inner child, we first have to start proving to her that we are trustworthy. And the more trustworthy you are to her, the more beautiful information she gives you in order to help you to actually heal. So the simplest thing and the simplest way to start this is first to make a little promise to yourself. Something that's not hard for you to do, something that's easy for you to do. And then make it something like, I'm just going to improve by 1%. Because often what we do as women is we go, oh my God, I have to do it all now. Like it all has to be perfect now. And so we go, it has to be 100% today. When actually, if we just increased by 10% or 1%, like if we increased by 1% every day, for example, by the end of the year, we would be 365% better. Versus I'm going to do it to 100%, and then what we do is we fail, and then we create this feedback loop that says that we're not trustworthy because, look, we couldn't follow through. So you make little promises to yourself. Like today, I'm going to spend 5 minutes coloring in. Or today, I'm going to spend 5 minutes standing on the ground with my feet earthing. Because I'm promising to look after myself. Today, I'm going to spend 5 minutes just staring into the mirror and actually reminding myself how beautiful I am, how amazing I am, how lovable and worthy I am. And you might feel silly doing it, and you might feel, like it's weird and all of that type of stuff. But it's not about how it feels for you. It's about the promise you're making to yourself and to that little person inside, so that you can build the trust with her and she can tell you all the secrets. And when she tells you all the secrets, you have so much beautiful information to actually heal the wounds. Because when she tells you a secret, you can see it from the child's mind of how she experienced it. But you're an adult now. And you can also see it from the adult mind of what might also have taken place. And you can also see it from the adult mind of, oh my goodness, dear little love, that's not what that meant. That's not what that meant. And even though that person said that nasty thing, what they were saying was that was how they felt about themselves. And you took it on as if it was you. You took it on as if it was your pain and your hurt, and that was really directed towards you. When actually it wasn't you at all. It was them. It was their yuckiness that they had inside. Because they could see the beauty inside of you, and it made them see the ugly inside of them. And you can have those conversations with her, and you can help her heal, and you can give her the love that she is absolutely well and truly worthy of. But it starts with building trust with you. It starts with having the confidence and the courage to say the things that you need to say, to stand up for yourself when you need to stand up for yourself, recognizing that if nobody even hears you, you hear you. And that's actually the ultimate voice that matters. You hearing you. Yes, we would love those people around us that we're saying these things to actually hear us too. But the most important person to hear you is you. Because you are the most powerful person in your own life. So that inner child is generally the thing that many of us run our buses through right now. So the way that we live our lives is we're born, we're beautiful, we're lovable, we're amazing, and then we get taught that we're not any of those things, and that we are not lovable, that we're not worthy, and we're, crap, and like there's things that are wrong with us, and we need to hide parts of ourselves because that's not acceptable, and that would upset somebody, and there's only certain emotions that we're allowed to access because these are good emotions and these are bad emotions, and you're not allowed to express bad emotions, or only some people in your household are allowed to express bad emotions. You're not allowed to express those bad emotions though, so put them aside, suppress them, keep them down. And then we create little patterns and little routines that help us kind of survive childhood in many ways, and we learn how to protect ourselves in this environment. And as we're learning to protect ourselves, we actually learn to take on roles, and we put on these masks. And these masks keep us safe. And as long as we play the character, or we play the role, or we play out that mask, we're okay. And so at some point, we wear the mask for so long that we forget that it's a mask. That we forget that what we're actually wearing is a mask. And we forget who we actually are underneath the mask. That person doesn't disappear. That person is still there, and we just forget them. And so as we move through our life, we continue to wear the mask. And then we continue to make decisions based on that mask that we're wearing. So if we're wearing the mask of the good girl, for example, and the mask could be a whole bunch of different things. It could be things like the hero mask. It could be the mask of the rescuer. It could be the mask of the nurse. It could be the mask of the martyr. It could be the mask of all sorts of different things, like the black sheep, the lost child, etc., etc. There's oodles of them. But we wear that mask and we associate ourselves as the mask. We forget that we're wearing the mask. And so instead of saying, I'm putting on this mask and this is who I'm playing, we label ourselves as the mask so that we no longer see a separation between us and the mask, recognizing that the mask only represents a portion of actually who you are. It doesn't represent the whole of who you are. And so we then make decisions based on that mask. So we might select partners that are going to help us continue to play that role of the mask that we're wearing. We might select jobs that are going to fit well with that mask that we're wearing. We might select friends that are going to help us keep wearing that mask and keep reminding us to wear that mask. And we essentially build a life for ourselves out of this craziness of wearing the mask. And many people don't even recognize that they're wearing a mask. And then they forget that they could take off the mask. Until they, maybe something happens. They might have a significant thing that happened in their life that makes them bring awareness to it. They might get to the point where they're actually, on their deathbed and they finally let go of the mask. Everybody has something different that happens. But I can tell you the biggest thing that helps people be able to take off their own masks is by you taking off your mask, because they're suddenly aware that, oh, you've changed. There's different parts of you. Maybe there's different parts of me. And so the more of us who take off our masks, the more people will be able to take off their masks. So I encourage you, please take off your mask. You're very welcome to take off your mask and explore who you are without that mask. Or putting the mask aside, that you can use it when you want to, but you can also put it down as well. And let the other parts of your character start to drive the bus. Because there's parts of you in this whole journey that have been shut down. And they've been suppressed. And they've been told that they're not allowed to have a voice. And they're not allowed in the driver's seat of the bus. So most people are walking around still wearing their masks and running their lives out of this mask environment. And in order to, sorry, my kids are going to bed now, so you'll hear all that good night stuff. Just like that one. So Most people walk around wearing the masks. In order to get to that place of really letting go of the mask and letting go of the things that are like our limiting beliefs, which is what I talked about the other night. Letting go of those things requires us to be able to tap back into our little person who created them in the first place. She created the masks, she created the patterns, and she did it for a very wise reason. And that was to survive. Because in the world that she lived in at that point in time, she needed survival mechanisms and she needed strategies to keep herself safe, and she needed things to keep herself okay, and to keep her magical big people okay. Because as we're children, our magical big people are our gods. Our parents are our gods if we're brought up with our parents, but whoever is the big people in our life that are looking after us, they're our gods, and we have to keep our gods happy in order to survive. So they create these patterns. And so to change the patterns, we need to understand why we created them in the first place. And this is where we're looking at things like meta programming, where we understand the programming that our brain has gone through in order for us to change it. And it starts with connecting back with that inner child and starting to tell her the things that she needed to hear. So for example, I think I shared this the other night. I think I did, when I was talking about limiting beliefs. I wrote a story on here, or I wrote a post on here. It's not a story, it was, it's truth, but it's in a prose format. So I wrote a post on here maybe a couple of years ago now, and it was called Dear Little Girl Hiding Under the Table. And it was essentially essentially a letter to my little person who was hiding under the table. And I wrote her this beautiful letter that said, you don't need to hide under the table anymore. You are all of these amazing things. You are safe, you are lovable, you are welcomed, you are blah, 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 blah. All sorts of beautiful, beautiful stuff. But also, in that scenario of the dear little girl hiding under the table, what I had to do also was go and heal why she was hiding under the table and have the conversations with her about what was really going on. Because for me, one of my strategies as a kid that I used when things were not going so great was to run and hide under the table. So if I'd done something really naughty, I would run and hide under the table, and that would mean mum wouldn't get me and I wouldn't be in trouble. Well, I would be in trouble, but after I got out onto the table. And so in my little person's mind, it was like, that's the safe spot. The safe spot's under the table. Because she couldn't get me under the table. I was too quick. I could move. Anywhere she tried to grab me, I could move. And I hadn't put two and two together that I do in my adult mind, was that sometimes I would do something wrong and she wouldn't even know about it, but I would go hide under the table. So then she would go find the thing that I had done wrong. And I hadn't put two and two together that, I'm under the table. She's going to go look for the thing that I've done wrong. But anyway, back to the story of hiding under the table. In my own inner work, healing child work, some of the stuff that I've had to do is go back to that moment and ask myself the question, what did I feel like in that moment? And what meaning did I give it? And one of the meanings that I gave it was that the table kept me safe. The meaning that I gave it was the table kept me safe. But actually, that was not the reality. The table didn't keep me safe, because eventually I would have to get out from underneath the table and then I would get, the punishment that I would have received. So it didn't keep me safe. But the story that I created was that hiding under the table keeps me hidden. And if I'm hidden, I'm not in trouble. If I'm hidden, I'm not going to have bad things happen to me. And then I work, of course, in an area like right now on this camera where I need to be seen. Like for you to be able to engage in the learning that I've got here, I need to be seen. And so the belief of hiding is safe and needing to be seen, there's a mismatch there. The mismatch is that there will be a consistent fight internally in me if I still hold on to hiding is safe and being seen is not safe. If I'm seen, I'm in danger. Like there's always an opposite thing. Like hiding is safe, so then being seen is unsafe. Just a very simple reflection of that. So in order to be seen and be okay with being seen and feel safe with being seen, I have to heal this message of being hidden is safe. So I have to stop hiding. And in that moment, I had to go back and talk to that little person of me that went through that whole story of like, you know, what it means to be about me, that I could do anything and I would be in trouble, and I didn't know what was going to set off getting in trouble and all of those things. And I had to go back and talk to her and tell her things that she didn't know, like that the volatile nature of my mum at that point in time had not much to do with me. It was more to do with how she was feeling about her. And, you know, talk to her about that the table isn't really hiding you and keeping you safe, and actually you are so lovable and worthy and enough that you don't need that. You don't need to hide to be safe, because you are always safe and I'm here with you. And I needed to tell her the things that she needed to hear in that 4-year-old self to help her heal. But I also needed to bring some forgiveness into that situation, bring some love into that situation. So for both parties, bringing some love to and compassion to my mother in that moment, bringing some love and compassion to my little person in that moment as well. Bring some forgiveness in there to both myself for carrying that story and having that misinterpretation of it, but also forgiveness for my mother in that situation. Bring some thank yous in there, so being thankful for some of the things that I could be thankful for in that moment. And it might even just be as simple as, I'm thankful that I've had this time to really reflect and see things differently in this scenario. And then bring in some sorries. So in that moment, you know, I felt that I needed to say sorry to my mum, not from me as a child, but sorry that she felt that way in her own body. But also sorry that my little person felt the way that she did, and she didn't have somebody that could tell her differently, and that she carried that pain and that burden with her. And bring all of that beautifulness into her in order to let go of that moment and to release it and allow myself to see the world differently and to be able to think about it differently. And that then creates space for me to come and do things like this, because now I don't need to not be seen to be safe. Now I can choose to be safe because I am seen, and I'm safe always with me. And keeping those promises to my little person. And so these are some of the things that I talk about in Coaching Academy, where I teach people who either want to have a healing business or already have some type of business of healing, that want to learn the art and the skill of leading and guiding someone else through the emotional side of their journey when it comes to health and wellness. And as we do this work, so as I teach you these skills, you also have to practice them. So you practice them on yourself, you practice them with your fellow students, and you practice them with your pro bono or real clients, so that you are learning how to really do them, not just for other people, but also for yourself. So that as you heal others, you also heal yourself as well. And so this is some of the stuff that I teach in Coaching Academy. It's like 20 weeks long, so there's lots and lots of stuff that I teach in Coaching Academy. Every week we end up with at least one live coaching session at the end of it. So you get to see me coach, you get to see other coaches coach, and we really are just a safe place to explore and practice the coaching art. And you really get that. So you're not just learning the book knowledge, you're actually learning how to do the stuff as well. So I just want to invite anyone who would like to join me on that experience. The link is in the header of this page to actually to join Coaching Academy. But essentially it is christinamatthewson.com/Coaching Academy, and you're welcome to go check out the sales link there and come and join me for that program. We start on the 19th of February, so that's when we're kicking off with our first lesson back at Coaching Academy, and essentially you get to spend the next 6 months with me pretty much doing all the fun things and learning all the fun skills around how to coach, lead and guide in all these areas, like working with the inner child, working with the mother wound, working with, you know, the illusion of truth, learning the skills of actually chunking down your client to find out what's really the story that's going on, learning the skills of being able to pace and lead your client, learning really great detective listening skills, as well as learning some of my own personal techniques of what's happening to somebody when they've got some physical ailments. So for example, when somebody has a thyroid condition, then generally we're looking at somebody who has a problem with speaking their voice. So if they're hyperactive, then they're often very nasty with their voice, and they're like, it's coming out, and they can often hurt the people that they love. Or if it's underactive, they're often biting their tongue and they're not saying the things that they need to say. So I teach you all of that as well, so that you've got a little bit of a checklist of here's some areas that I need to take my client into. All right, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me for this series. It's been beautiful to come and share it on the front lines here. If you want to join me in that back end and you want more information, please feel free to send me a message. I'm only happy to reply. And if you're watching on replay, thanks for joining me on replay. If you're watching me live, thanks for joining me live. It's been great being here tonight, and I look forward to more of these conversations. See you later. Bye for now.